What up, what up, what up, people? It's me, L Teddy 27, Angry Teacher Chronicles. We are back, y'all, for David Makes Man, Season 1, Episode 3. Alright, y'all. Lots to... Ooh. I had a lot going on this episode. A lot of comments in my head. And I know I'm not going to be able to get to all of it, y'all, because I had so many thoughts, so many opinions, so much to say. There's just not enough time. But I'm going to try and get to some of it. And some of it I will cover on a live later. Supposed to be in San Antonio this weekend. I don't know how I'm going to do it. But sometime when I go live again, I'll put it out there. All right. So, David goes to see the school counselor. We start off, David's at the school counselor, and immediately David's sitting there in the seat in front of the school counselor talking to him, and you see his one part of his conscience. Like, he's sitting in this chair here, but in the chair back here you see his part of his conscience. So it's another part of himself talking to him. And every time the counselor asks him a question, he'll take a pause, and it'll be, you know, that part of his conscience talking into his head, and he'll pause before he'll give an answer. And he never really says what his conscience is thinking. So I thought that was good. And he talked about spending a night at Sarah's house. So then what we have during the episode is we have David reliving through or going over with the counselor what's happened over the last day or two, from staying at Sarah's house and everything that happened there to what happened at the school, all the way pretty much up until he was there at the counselor's office. So the next thing we see is David going back in his head. He's going back to like 2 days before, or maybe the day before, yes. And when they were in Dr. Woodstrap's class. And David is tired. He's sleeping in class. Y'all know David got a lot to do. He has to be an adult. He has to take care of his brother. He has a lot going on. He has a lot that he has to be responsible for, that 8th graders should not be responsible for. So it causes him to be up a lot. And so he's falling asleep in Dr. Woodstrap's class. So this girl, her name is Marissa. Marissa gets up and she does her project. I think I can't remember what the project was called. I think it was called How Did I Get Here, or Where Did I Come From? I don't remember. At any rate, David is falling asleep during her presentation. She had this part where she slams her hand on the ground, like, and bursts this thing that makes blood go all over her hand. It was a really cute project that she did. And then it wakes David up, and so the bell rings. And I found it so funny because the students got up, and every teacher of any secondary school has this thing about, because she was like, "What are y'all doing?" That's what Dr. Woodstrap said. Because every teacher know, like, what, bitch, what are you getting up for? Because you know the bell does not dismiss this class. I don't know where you think you're going. Do not play with me like that. You know, every good teacher with good classroom management, you know you don't play them games. The bell can ring 1,000 times over, baby. You better not get up trying to pack your bags or anything in my class. I don't care. So it made me smile. And there were a lot of things that Dr. Woodstrap did that made me think about myself in my own classroom, and I'll go over some of those if, as time permits. So anyway, she tells David she wants to talk to him after class. And so she gets up and she talks to David. She said, well, what's going on? Because he's sleeping in class. He's not being respectful to his fellow classmates, so forth and so on. She said, she asked him if he ever made up with Sarah, and he was like, yeah. And she was like, you gonna have to prove it, because she doesn't believe him. She knows. She's a good teacher. She's a veteran teacher. A good veteran teacher, they know students, not just their current students, but they know the trends and patterns of students, and they can tell when students are lying and when they're not. So she knows he's kind of lying about him and Saren being good. And so she tells him, okay, if y'all good, then I want you to incorporate him into your project. You will be presenting tomorrow. And he was like, but wait a minute, that's tomorrow. She said, yep, and you will get 50 points off, and it's 50% of your grade. She is, and sometimes with eighth graders, and sometimes with students who are like a David that have a lot going on and have 1,001 reasons not to get things done, or 1,001 legitimate reasons as to why you should take it easy on them. They need for you to be harder on them. They need for you to say, no, I don't care. You got all that going on. Fine. Figure it out. Make it happen. Those three words are so powerful and so important during that time. Make it happen. And that's the long and short of it. Because when they go home and all of the responsibilities they got at home, they managed to make it happen then. And so now you have to have that same level of responsibility, that same urge here at school. And that's what she was doing. And that's what a good veteran teacher does. So then we have Saren, and they're in the hallway. So Saren is, you see Saren and Marissa, the little girl, gives her a little chemistry. Said he made a joke about making meth. And that was his segue to kind of, make a joke with Saren about Marissa and so forth and so on. Because he knows that Saren likes Marissa. And that was his way to try and, segue into asking him about helping him with the project. The language here really caught me because I forgot what happened, but Saren said the hell, and David is like, no, the fuck. And so Saren repeats, the fuck. And so this is David's way of, you can see there's this whole David trying to teach Saren how to be, I hate to put it this way, I guess more hood. I really want to say more black, but I don't want to be that guy and say more black, but y'all know that's what we're all thinking. And when they were, so he told him what Dr. Woodstrap wanted him to do. And he was saying, we need to work on this. And so most people are going to gloss over it, but most people, when you say we, they say, are you speaking French? These students live in Miami, and in Miami it's not French, it's Creole, because there's a large Haitian population in Miami, a huge Haitian population in Miami, and Haitian Creole is a language that is kind of a derivative of French, but it's kind of broken French. It has a little Spanish in it, but it's kind of a derivative of French, Haitian Creole, that language. But anyway, they do say we for yes. Anyway, and so I found that, and I love how in every episode they always give you a little Miami in there. And it's not the Miami where you see shows that are set in Miami and the people that write it are not native Miamians, and it's pretentious almost. This is a little different because some of the things that they speak of and some of the subtle and covert parts of the things they talk about, the way things they discuss, the way they carry themselves are legitimately Miami. Like, and we'll get to this later, but when David and Saren were hanging out at Saren's house, and Saren called David Aggie, and that is such a Miami term because that's how kids talk in Miami. Saren reassures David that Saren agrees to help him only if he'll stay at David's house. David will come and stay at his house over the spend the night over his house. David is kind of apprehensive because of the whole, situation with the stepdad or so forth. And Saren kind of reassures him and says, listen, my stepdad's out of town for work. He's not going to be there, so you don't have anything to worry about. His stepdad is in Atlanta, so he has nothing to worry about if he spends the night. So then they're on the school bus, and there's these bumps on the road as they're going home. And every time he hits a bump, it kind of gives Saren pain. It hurts him. So him and David have this playful game where every time they get to a bump, they kind of raise up off the seat. They have this little game. They put their hands on the seat in front of them like that, and they kind of have this game. And I love this, the coy playfulness between David and Saren. I just really like I like the way they showed the relationship between those two. And this is you know, with the backdrop of everything we know from episode 1. So when they get to Saren's house, you see Saren knows the routine. Saren takes off his shoes, tells David, hey, take off your shoes, put them neatly over here. Saren knows that if he doesn't keep it in order and he doesn't do everything precisely for his parents, he's going to have a problem. So we learned a couple things about Saren. We learned Saren's dad is from Overtown. And this is the other thing that makes sense for me. I'm looking at Saren and I'm looking at his skin tone. I'm looking at the texture of his hair. And it would not have made sense for the stepdad to be Saren's dad because he's too light. For David's mom to be white and Saren to be his complexion and the coarseness of his hair, his dad would definitely have to be much darker skinned than the stepdad is. And so that makes much more sense to me. Anyway, so Saren's dad is from Overtown. David tells him, you know, my brother JG's dad was from Overtown. He talks about how his dad is dead, how JG's dad is dead. We learn Saren's dad, he doesn't know where he is. He thinks he stays in Tampa, but he's not sure. David talks about never meeting his dad. He doesn't know his dad. He doesn't know what he looked like. He's never met him before. And we'll get there. We'll get there later as well. So then Saren's mom, she comes home, and Saren, when he sees she's coming, he rushes over to the door, and he has to stand up straight and, you know, be all at attention and so forth when the mom comes in. And the interaction between him and the mom was very interesting. As much as there was this allusion to the stepdad being abusive sexually and physically, there's something there with the mom as well. And I wrote down in my notes that Saren's mom appears to be controlling and possibly abusive. And this is one of the topics that I want to cover. I have a whole lot to say, but there's just not enough time in this review. I couldn't help, and y'all get in the comments about this. Let me know y'all thoughts, because we can dissect this in the comments. When I watched this, something about it was uneasy to me. Because yes, this is his mother, and I do not take that away from her. But to a certain degree, I could not help but think about the whole black-white thing. You know, the whole white abusing blacks, the whole, my brain even went back to slavery times and so forth and so on. Seeing this young black boy, and it went, and I think it was purposely by the writers and the actors, it went beyond the level of a parent disciplining their child, more so to him being subjugated and him being subjective to his, almost, dare I say, in a submissive way that you would see in slavery. And it gave me an uneasy feeling. But then that coupled with this being his mom, and there's so many ways it can go any way. It could be like, no, that's her right, that's her child, she could do that, to the no, there's still this, you know, uncomfortable situation where yes, you don't just have a white child, you have a child that is black and white, and you have to be sensitive to that. And just the way it played out on camera, it just gave me an uneasy feeling inside, and I couldn't help it. And maybe I'm looking too far into it. Y'all hit me in the comments about this, because I really, this particular part right here, he mentions a part of it later on in the episode, but it really made me uneasy. And I think that was on purpose. You gotta love good cinema that makes you feel uneasy, or good television that gives you that feeling where you want to talk about it, and it gives you so many thoughts and things like that. So we see him back in the present talking to the counselor again, and we see another part of his conscience. So now he has this part of his conscience over here sitting behind him, this other part of his conscience over here sitting behind him, and both of them are talking for him at times, but the counselor can't hear it, and that's him listening to his conscience, but then choosing not to say what they're thinking and saying something else. And I really like how that played out the entire episode. It was really cool. Really cool. So then we're back at Saren's house. He's reliving, or telling the counselor what happened. And so they're going through this Mary J. Blige song. I don't remember which Mary J. Blige song, but Saren was trying to sing it, and he wasn't doing a good job at all. And so he said, listen, we can get Marissa to do it. And Marissa's a mean girl. She's a middle school girl. All middle school girls are mean. All of them. All middle school girls are the meanest iteration of any girl in the world. Girls are at their meanest at that time. They're going through puberty, hormones, all of that. You will never find a girl more mean than she is in middle school. Telling you what I know. So they answer they call Marissa. Saren puts on, as David said, his white voice for Marissa's mom. Marissa got an old school Haitian mother, okay? And those Haitian mothers do not play. They do not play the radio. And so, now the actress that played Marissa's mother, I saw the attempt at a Haitian accent. It was believable if you were not from Miami and you haven't heard a lot of Haitian mothers who have that heavy Haitian accent speak. So it was passable for television, but she got to work on her Haitian mother accent a little bit more. Just a little bit. All right. And so Marissa, agrees to help them, even through her meanness. So then they segue to David's mom going to pick up JG from Miss Elijah's house, and Miss Elijah is keeping JG while David is spending the night, because David had to ask his mom to get permission, and she begrudgingly said okay. So JG is staying at Miss Elijah's house until his mom gets home, and Miss Elijah and Glow is David's mom. They have such a beautiful relationship, and I love the banter between the two, and it's the typical gay black male and his fag hag. The typical back and forth banter between the two. They're so good. Starry is still there, and I'm still curious to I hope they give us more of what's really behind the Starry character, because he's there as well. And then when Glow goes to her house, and Miss Elijah comes outside to talk to her, you see Ray, dude with the red dreads, is getting arrested by the police. Now I'm thinking that's going to play out, because if he's arrested, that means that the little light-skinned dope boy, what is his name, Shinobi or something like that, I'm guessing he's going to be left in charge, and we know he wants no parts of David. He does not like David, and the only thing keeping him away from messing with David was Ray. And remember, he saw the whole thing last episode with David talking to Sky, or basically talking to himself with his psychotic episode. So back at Saren's house, it's bedtime, and they're in bed, and David tells Saren, listen, you need to tell an adult about this. Somebody's got to know what's going on with you. And so we get to the point where both David and Saren believes that the mom knows, and the mom may be turning a blind eye to it. And this is where Saren talks about, because David was like, your mom is really hard on you. And Saren says sometimes she goes too far. And that went back to that scene that I told you all earlier when she first came home, and how that played out. It just gave me an uneasy feeling. And you can tell, even for Saren, how she treats him makes him uneven at times. And I don't know, it bothered me. So the next morning they're at Sharon's house. The stepdad is magically back. He came back early. So, David wakes up late. Sharon's been up because, he has a lot of rules. We find Sharon breaks his glass, and he quickly is like, "Oh, I'm sorry," because he knows his parents don't play that foolishness. So then the mom kind of snaps on him a little bit, and the stepdad kind of steps in and says no, no. And this leads me to believe it's not just the stepdad. The mom plays a role in this abuse as well. At least that's the way it makes me feel. So the stepdad makes Sharon recite the scripture, and then Sharon's mom invites David to church. And we'll see how that goes and how that plays out. Then they're at school. So Marissa's there, being Marissa. She's talking, just talking. Ain't even paying them no mind. David and Sharon are talking to themselves. She ain't even took a breath to stop talking yet. Just a typical middle school girl. And it makes so much sense. It was so cute. And he was like, "Can we rehearse?" And so she was like, "No, we got this, da 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 da." And so David is kind of frustrated because he doesn't fit in. And he needs their help. And they're reluctant to give them their help because they feel like, okay, we did it on our own. You should be able to do it on your own and not need help. And you see this begging that David does. And I'm glad they showed that, because sometimes it's not that you can't, but sometimes you don't have the resources that the other students have. David just does not have the same resources, doesn't have the same background. He doesn't have some of the luxuries that they have. So not that he can't, but he simply just needs help. And so you see him begging, "Listen, I need y'all to help me. Please help me." And so yeah, they agree to help him. But I know how that feels, because I was that poor gifted student with a whole bunch of kids that have much more than he did. And I remember catching the bus and stuff to go to their houses and trying to do things to try to fit in. And I remember I used to say, quick story time, I remember I used to save my money, sometime my allowances, to go buy some of the snacks and some of the things that the white kids would buy for lunch that were gifted with me, so I could try to fit in. And I could only get enough for like 1 or 2 days out of the week. I never had enough to get it for the whole week like they had. And so I just remember what that feels like, needing help and people not offering it. And finally he had to just beg for help. And they help him. So when they gets up to present the project to Dr. Woodstrap, he gives the story of his mom and his dad. And we find out that his mom had sex with one of her professors at Miami-Dade. They said that she's when the mom is in this car with baby David, and she gets out the car, she goes up to the house, and the lady comes to the car. She was like, "Oh, you go to Dade?" And she was like, "Huh?" Because the decal was on the car. Now Dade is Miami-Dade Community College at that time, but it's Miami-Dade College now. It's a well-known, probably one of the best community colleges in the country. Anyway, she's really going there to confront David's dad, who's her professor. He's not home yet. And so the wife finally recognizes her being her husband's student. And she was like, "What did you come here for? Why are you here?" And she finally tells her, "This is his son. And I came here to ask him why he don't want to be in his son's life." So then the professor finally comes, and of course, he sends her off, sends her away, and she's like, "Don't worry about it." He's like, "Don't never come here again, or I'll call the police." She was like, "Don't worry about it. We won't be back." And that's why David doesn't know who his dad was. So we have confirmed that the dad is not Sky, like many of us thought. The dad is someone else. He's never met the dad, never seen the dad. She told him, "When my son get famous, don't try and act like you know him then." So that's how that played out. So there was a lot of background information there. So then finally, the last thing we have is back in the present in the counselor's office. And the counselor asks him why he didn't do his project on his friend who died over the summer. And I'm assuming that they're talking about Sky. But then if I remember, I thought he said Sky died 2 years ago. So maybe it's somebody else. We'll see. But anyway, you see his conscience, both sides of his conscience, not both sides, but both parts of his conscience, start to talk to him. And the counselor says, well, why do you keep taking these pauses when I ask you a question? And so he's still listening to his conscience. Inevitably, he answers the question about why he chose not to do the project on his friend who died. And he finally lets his conscience speak for him. So he speaks the words that his conscience, both parts of his conscience, is speaking to him about how much the friend meant to him and different things like that. And I wrote down the poem that he spoke of that said, all things must die. And it makes you, you know he's talking about the friend, but it makes you think, is he talking about himself? Because when you grow up in that type of mentality, your own mortality, when you grow up in that type of environment, I should say, your own mortality is always at the forefront of your mind. And being put in a place where you have to address your own mortality. And to me, I felt like that poem was something that spoke to him because it forces him to address his own mortality. And that's where it went off. Lots of stuff here. Lots of really deep, embedded, heavy stuff here. I want to know y'all thoughts on these things that I talked about here today. Y'all know how I say at the end, let's get in them comments and let's argue about what y'all thoughts, and let's talk about it. I'm ready to see y'all in the comment section. That's all I got for y'all. That was David Makes Man, season 1, episode 3. I will catch y'all back here next week for another episode. Thank y'all for coming, y'all. Y'all drive safely.